WFYI podcasts are brought to you by Visit Bloomington. With over 350 restaurants to choose from, Bloomington, Indiana is truly a food lover's paradise. Go to visitbloomington.com to discover what suits your taste.
This is WFYI News Now. It's February 14th, and I'm Abriana Herron. On today's show, the new Chancellor at IU's Indianapolis campus starts this week. We answer questions about child support sent in by listeners. And some Indiana school leaders say they were surprised to learn Attorney General Todd Rokita published complaints against their schools for potentially inappropriate materials.
And they're really saying that these things are incomplete, inaccurate, and outdated.
Those stories coming up. But first, it's all hands on deck as Indianapolis gets ready to host the 2024 NBA All-Star Game. Jill Sheridan reports on public safety plans around the event.
Years of planning and preparation have gone into the upcoming All-Star Game, postponed due to the pandemic. City leaders gathered Monday at Gainbridge Fieldhouse to lay out safety plans as more than 125,000 people are expected in Indianapolis. Mayor Joe Hogsett says downtown Indy is ready.
Our city's first neighborhood will be the venue for concerts, contests, art exhibits, and of course, plenty of basketball.
IMPD will be fully staffed in all districts, including downtown. Police will have greater visibility as fans plan to gather at numerous venues. Fans are being told to have a plan before heading downtown, as numerous street closures will be in place. The last time Indianapolis hosted the NBA All-Star Game was in 1985. I'm Jill Sheridan.
Indiana University Indianapolis's new chancellor and executive vice president, Latha Ramchand, started this week. As Ben Thorpe reports, the inaugural position is expected to lead the IU Indianapolis campus through its split with Purdue University.
Purdue University and Indiana University signed the paperwork to dissolve their joint campus known as IUPUI last year. But the separation won't be complete until this summer. The schools plan to operate two separate academic organizations in IUPUI's place. Latha Ramchand was named as Chancellor of IU's reimagined Indy campus. She previously served as an executive at University of Missouri. Purdue University in Indianapolis is not expected to hire a chancellor, instead appointing Dan Hassler to serve as Chief Operating Officer. I'm Ben Thorpe.
Some stories from Indiana Public Broadcasting are inspired by listener questions. This time, many people want to know how Hoosiers with child support questions can find more information and resources. As Violet Cumber-Weiland reports, one attorney says resources can vary depending on the situation.
Tracy Pappas is the managing attorney of the Indianapolis office at Indiana Legal Services. She says child support prosecutors' offices across the state can help enforce and modify child support orders in cases of non-payment by either party or unfair payments. For general information, she says you can call the statewide Kids Line.
They can answer questions basically about payments that are being made. If someone's not getting the money they think is being paid, they can check with the Kids Line. But if support's not being paid or not being paid at the appropriate amount, the best place really is the 4D Child Support Prosecutor's Office.
She says the child support line can be reached at 800-840-8757. Pappas encourages parents to contact the child support prosecutors' offices in their counties before hiring private attorneys. For Indiana Public Broadcasting, I'm Violet Cumber-Weiland.
And for our final story today, Attorney General Todd Rokita's office is asking parents to submit complaints of potentially inappropriate materials in their schools. The office says it's received evidence of indoctrination, but many school leaders disagree. To help explain this recent controversy, Eric Weddle sat down with Chalkbeat Indiana Bureau Chief MJ Slaby.
MJ, thanks for talking with me today.
Thanks for having me, Eric.
So this is not the first time that Attorney General Todd Rokita has pushed himself into the classroom. A few years ago, he began releasing these documents called A Parent's Bill of Rights, which was in part this roadmap for how parents could interact with and push back on their schools. It was political in nature, how he framed social and emotional learning and discussions around race. So now he has a new website called Eyes on Education. What is this?
Yeah, and so it's a portal where people can submit and view what Rokita is calling potentially inappropriate materials in their schools. It's really, he's called it kind of the next step to that Parent Bill of Rights you were just talking about. And so he launched it last week, and it already had complaints on it with materials labeled from 13 school districts and 1 university.
People probably view education under the purview of the Indiana Department of Education. Was the Education Secretary, Katie Jenner, involved in this?
No, not at all. So that was one of our first questions, too, and so we reached out to IDOE, and they said, no, we didn't know about the launch of this. And then they later told us they're going to have no involvement with it. So.
Okay, wow.
Yeah.
What type of documents are on this website now? I looked, and a few of them seem pretty old.
Yeah, it's really a flashback for me. It feels like when I was covering Hamilton County schools for the Star, one of the things is actually something I reported on almost exactly 3 years ago, which is a letter that the then superintendent of HSE sent out telling his teachers how to teach the Black Lives Matter movement. Mm-hmm. Some of the other things are gender support plans, portions of book lists, portions of online quizzes, lots of stuff on the topics of race, gender, political ideology. But I think the oldest one we found went back all the way to 2018.
Okay, interesting. So you and your colleagues at Talk About Indiana have been reaching out to school districts who have this material on the website and this portal. What did they tell you?
Yeah, so we've reached out to all the school districts and the university that were on the portal to say, what did you know about this? What do you think? And the 11 that got back to us told us they didn't know anything about the portal. They didn't have a chance to look at things beforehand. Todd Rokita's office says that they vetted things before they posted,
mm-hmm.
but when you talk to the districts, they say, well, not with us.
Okay.
And they're really saying that these things are incomplete, inaccurate, and outdated.
In the past few years, we've seen lawmakers in Indiana and across the country really, try and limit what can be discussed in schools and the ways to restrict books at libraries as well. How does, Rokita's new website fit into this culture fight?
Yeah, well, it's a lot of the same stuff, honestly. And, like we talked about earlier, this is really a follow-up to that Parents' Bill of Rights. And according to the Attorney General's office, they're saying that this kind of is proof that they need to stay involved in this. They're mm-hmm. saying, hey, there's people out there that said there wasn't indoctrination in schools. And now they're saying, hey, we updated that policy, or we removed that guest lecturer or vendor or whatever it was. And so in Rokita's eyes, that's saying, hey, that was existed before. So he's really seeing this as a reason to stay involved.
So as Rokita collects this information on this website, what could the potential outcome for it be? I mean, is it possible the Attorney General's office could actually file a lawsuit against some of these schools?
I mean, I think anything is possible, but we did see in that first press release, he mentioned that they'd be investigating to see if any Indiana laws were violated. Mm-hmm. But then I think something that was interesting to me in sort of those follow-up communications from his office was that this is viewed as a tool for parents to, what he's saying, stop indoctrination more quickly in schools. So I think that line of this is a continuation of the Parents' Bill of Rights is really showing there. Rokita's office did tell us that they don't plan to remove anything on the portal if schools mm-hmm. complain. And they told schools, well, if it's a policy, if that got repealed, show us proof that it was repealed and replaced. We'll update that. They did that in 2 districts so far on the portal. But otherwise, they're saying, prove to us that this was never handed out in your school or part of your school curriculum, which is a pretty high bar for schools to try to prove something that they're saying is either inaccurate or incomplete.
Okay, well, MJ, thanks for explaining all that. We look forward to reporting on this in the future.
Thanks so much, Eric. Nice talking to you.
That's all for today's episode of WFYI News Now. Our podcast is produced by the following people who live in your community: Darian Benson, Drew Daudelin, Kendall Antron, who composed the music for this podcast, and me, Abriana Herron. Our news director is Sarah Neal-Estes. If you like today's episode, remember to subscribe and share, and follow WFYI on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube to check in on our newsroom throughout the day. Thanks for listening. We'll be back tomorrow.